Hi guys, Tony Danker, the Director General of the CBI, has said that the UK government needs to work to build trust with the EU, but also that the EU needs to go some way to help businesses in Northern Ireland, especially those that import from Great Britain. Now, he was interviewed by BBC Northern Ireland and he emphasised something that I've talked about before, that instability there, the fact that the executive is not up and running, will fuel uncertainty and thus put off further investment. However, he also talked about how the protocol gives Northern Ireland a competitive advantage over other parts of the United Kingdom. Have a listen to what he had to say.
For a large number of businesses, it's working great. You know, if you're an exporter or a manufacturer, you have access to dual markets, and that is a very big deal in the context of the overall Brexit fallout. Now, clearly for some businesses, certainly if you're importing stuff to Northern Ireland, it's not working yet, or at least it's working, but it's far too complex.
So are you saying that the EU does need to move further than it was willing to do in October last year?
I think there is certainly an onus on the EU to move further. I think there's an onus on the EU to recognise that Northern Ireland is a special situation and that there are people of goodwill here who do not want to in any way undermine the integrity of the single market.
And that's true. And I completely agree with him on that there are people in Northern Ireland who do not want to undermine the integrity of the single market. The problem is not the people in Northern Ireland. The problem is the UK government, because it's the UK government that will decide on what type of checks are carried out. It's the UK government that will decide on labelling. The EU have asked them to do a certain number of things and they have not done those. So in order to arrive at that level of trust, you need to build that trust. And it's difficult to build trust with somebody who's talking about tearing up an agreement they signed 3 years ago. It's difficult to build trust with somebody who's criticising the EU for being strict when it signed up to the same agreement. When you have this sort of rhetoric on an almost daily basis about how the EU is trying to annex parts of Northern Ireland. Now, this is not the official line from the government, but there are members of the Conservative Party who are pumping out this as well. And this is deeply unhelpful. How do you build trust with somebody if you're criticising them for implementing something that was agreed?
But I also think there's an onus on the UK side to build trust. I don't think unilateral action builds trust.
He's also warned that the failure to get an executive in place will represent a growing economic challenge.
There are some areas in which a functioning executive is a precondition to strong levels of investment and opportunity. Anything where, for example, public regulation or public subsidy is relevant, for example, in our infrastructure markets. If we want prosperity to take hold in Northern Ireland, and that's going to be harder than ever given the cost of living crisis, we need a functioning executive.
An executive return is dependent on a protocol deal or the government moving to change the law. But neither of those look likely to happen quickly. John Campbell, BBC Newsline.
So there you have it. You need to have a working executive in order to create an atmosphere, an environment where businesses feel comfortable about investing in Northern Ireland. But that's been blocked at the moment by the DUP. The DUP that campaigned for Brexit, that wanted their Brexit, got their Brexit, and are complaining about the consequences of that Brexit. Now, the DUP understand that the Northern Ireland executive has no impact on whether the protocol remains in place or is removed. This is not the job of the Northern Ireland executive. It's the job of the UK government. And as I said before, the people of Northern Ireland are suffering. Businesses in Northern Ireland are suffering because there isn't an executive up and running. And that needs to take place in order to make sure that investment comes to Northern Ireland and there is prosperity. There are jobs for people. The average person on the street does not care about the protocol. They care about the cost of living crisis. They care about having a job. They care about their family's future. They don't care about the protocol. This is something niche. This is something the likes of the DUP or the TUV care about and are using it as an issue to maintain some sort of influence in Northern Ireland. Their influence has waned over the last number of years. They understand that, and this is their last throw of the dice. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this, As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.